Everyone sucks up. Welcome to Career Boss. I'm Bruce. Now, I don't know if everybody really sucks up, but if you're going to do it right. So here's my definition of sucking up. Basically, sucking up involves overreacting or even just acting in a supportive way to something that your boss or maybe your coworker you're sucking up to does or says in order to score points with them. So everyone sucks up, maybe, maybe not, but what is true is that no one likes a suck up. So let's get this on the table first. What's the difference between complimenting versus actually sucking up? Well, complimenting is more like you really mean it, and you're not trying to compliment to impact your career. There's no real end game here. You want the person to feel good about themselves, like noticing a new haircut or a style. But sucking up, you're only doing that in an attempt to get ahead. But what if you really, really like your boss? If you tell her that in front of your coworkers, is there a risk? So I've created the Career Boss Sucking Up Continuum, where we're looking at sucking up from being a quick compliment to a planned compliment, to actually gushing to your boss about how great they are, to being a yes person. So if you look at it this way, on the left, people are just letting their work do the talking. If it's a quick compliment, it's not really that bad a deal, but then you've got the persons on the far right who are schemers or sycophants. I thought I'd include this because this surprised me. This was a VP I worked with, and he was bragging about his approach to the CEO, and he said, basically, sucking up is part of my strategy. So what are the risks of sucking up to your boss? If it's done rarely as a light compliment, I don't think there's any risk at all. If it's done a lot, your boss is going to see you clearly as a suck up. It's going to stop believing any compliment that you're going to give them, and they're frankly going to get tired of having you around. I had an employee once that told me what she thought I wanted to hear. Not about complimenting, about whatever work was being done. And I stopped trusting her because of her constant telling me these things that I didn't think I was getting the truth. There's also the case where I had a boss, he was a VP at a company, and we traveled with a few of the owners, and he constantly sucked up to them. But what they made him do all the time was, if we were traveling, I think we were flying into Vegas, and they said to him, look, go get the baggage and go get the rental car and meet us over here at the restaurant. So they're treating him like crap. So clearly sucking up didn't seem to be working for him. All right. There may be a right way to suck up, and it's kind of interesting. I found this article that says 15 ways to suck up at work that won't make you feel slimy. And this is from a site called WiseBread. And I thought, okay, so as I was researching this video, I thought, well, this is pretty good. So let's take a look at them. So they say you're going to feel less slimy if you do these 15 different things. I'm going to cover 7 or 8 today in this part 1 of the series. So I created the Career Boss Slime-O-Meter, which is going to score their sucking up strategies along these lines. So we're going to have not at all slimy to disgustingly slimy, and it's going to be on a 0 to 10 point scale. So here's the first one from the WiseBread site. They're all from the WiseBread site. Gauge your target. So what they say there is that some bosses thrive on constant blatant compliments and others detest them. This is true. I've seen this. Figure out your strategy based on how your boss responds to such instances, okay? If your boss gives you a weird look when you compliment her, then back off and take a more subtle approach. Absolutely. Instead of saying, you're so amazing, wonderful, smart, gush, 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 they said to say something along the lines of, I'm glad I get to learn so much from you every day. Ooh, that's a little bit slimy. Or, I've learned so much about being adaptable while watching how you handle situations. Not so bad, not so bad. You're complimenting and it sounds like you really mean it. So on a career boss slimy score, I give this a 7 out of 10 because it depends on the way you say it. If you say, I'm glad I get to learn so much from every day, that pretty much sounds unbelievably suck-up-ish. So that's why I gave it a higher score of 7 out of 10. Next one, it says, retain your values. Okay, I like the way that sounds. If your boss is all about the brown nosers, in other words, the people who do suck up, and sucking up is not something you're comfortable with, they say you need to make a decision pretty quickly about your future at the company. Okay, that's a little drastic. It may be your boss sucking up, but doesn't mean you need to think about leaving the company. Maybe you need to switch departments. That would make more sense to me. And it says, don't ditch your values for the chance to get ahead because it's rarely worth it. I agree. Then it says, if you're not being authentic about the compliments you're spewing and you're not a tremendous actor, it's gonna seem phony, which is completely counterproductive. I gave this a 0 out of 10 score because basically it's not slimy at all. It says you've got to be authentic. If you're going to flatter somebody or you're going to suck up, you got to really mean it. Be careful how you say it. If you retain your values and you're not the type of person who's comfortable sucking up, don't do it, as it says. You're not an actor necessarily. Be well-rounded. Okay, that sounds good. If sucking up is part of your game plan, you need to also consider the other people in your work environment. Include anyone who can influence the decision to promote you. Okay, this is starting to sound a little slimy. Such as your big boss's support staff, the administration team, and management leaders. So, okay, so they're saying, don't just suck up to your boss, you gotta suck up to the support team, admin team, other management leaders, maybe your clients. Okay, that's a little different. They're not gonna necessarily play a role in you getting a promotion. The moral of the story is be nice to everybody. I gave this a pretty high score because if you're going to start sucking up to everybody around you just because you think you can get ahead, that's an 8 out of 10. That's getting into pretty slimy territory. Know where the line is. There's a big difference between friendly compliments and blatant flattery. So make sure you know where to draw the line. Following others around, especially your boss, like a puppy and throwing flattery like confetti. I like that. You're going to become annoying and not going to be effective. It's not going to be an effective strategy at all. Subtlety and authenticity are the key to sucking up. Okay, so what it's saying here is don't go around throwing flattery like confetti. Okay, I get that. That's a 10 out of 10 if you start doing that stuff, because not only is your boss going to get sick of you, your coworkers are going to get sick of you, and other people around you are going to get tired of you as well. Number 5, ask for guidance in a flattering way. Well, this is interesting. What's it say? Approach your target under the guise of asking for guidance with some flattery thrown in for good measure. So let me think about this for a second. You're asking your boss, let's say, for guidance. That's never a bad thing because it just shows you appreciate what they do, but they're saying to throw some flattery in. All right. For instance, start the conversation with this. I really admired the way you handled the Smith situation. Do you have any advice for this issue I'm having? Okay. This pays a compliment while giving you one-on-one time with your boss. I give this a 3 out of 10. It's not that bad. I like the second part of the sentence that says, do you have any advice for this issue I'm having? So if you're saying I like the way you did something and do you have any advice for me, I don't find that particularly slimy. If you're really looking for the advice, I don't find it slimy at all. Next one. Observe and regurgitate. Oh, that's kind of gross, but let's see what it says. Take notes mentally or physically, I guess I mean on your piece of paper or something. Take notes if you learn something from your boss or co-workers on a daily basis. Okay, so I'm in a meeting with my boss, or I'm in a meeting with my co-workers and my boss, taking notes on something that I find where I learned something. Okay, that sounds all right. When you have the opportunity, bring up elements of what you learned when meeting with your boss or other people. So, okay. I'll read on. Boss or not, everyone loves hearing things about themselves. Some don't, but a lot of people do. So observe and play back the good things you've been seeing. I'm going to give this a 1 out of 10 because done right, if you are learning something from your boss or coworkers and you throw a compliment their way to other people, if you're complimenting your coworker to your boss, I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as a smart thing, and you show appreciation. So I gave it a 1. That's closer to a 0 in terms of sliminess. So observe and regurgitate. Now, if you do it to your boss and you say, I really liked how you explained something to me or explained something to the group, this really worked out well, thank you. Not a big deal. Okay, we'll stick with a 1 out of 10. 7. Ooh. Dish compliments to their allies. This one's feeling a little bit slimy to me. When given the chance to associate with friends or confidants of your boss, feel free to show your admiration. Okay. Mention how well you think your boss does managing the team, or throw out a compliment like she or he is such a great leader. It says in some cases you might even receive a compliment in return if your boss has expressed their opinion of you to them. So let me understand this. So you're talking to a confidant of your boss and you say a compliment to them for your boss. In other words, you're saying something I like that my boss has been doing, and they're going to say to you perhaps like, well, this is how your boss feels about you, and good news, a compliment back to you. That's a stretch. Likely your compliment will get back to your boss, and then guess what? You'll get thought of in a positive light. So they're also saying that if you compliment this confidant or friend of the boss, that they'll tell your boss, and your boss will get back to you about what they thought of you. Okay. Whew, that's a little convoluted. So I'm giving this one a 3 out of 10. I mean, if you're chasing down somebody to give a compliment to your boss, that's just a little bit odd and very slimy. But if you're just saying something that you really like the way your boss does, and they know your boss well, okay, not a terrible deal. I don't feel particularly slimy on that one. Career Boss gives it a 3 out of 10. Number 8, expand on a common passion. Interesting. If you learn your boss is a clothes horse, an avid hiker, really into baking, or shares a passion for your favorite hobby, start a conversation about it. Okay. Okay, this is funny. I heard you're quite the fisherman. What kind of bait have you used? Okay, maybe if you're a fisher person yourself. It's feeling a little slimy now. Create common ground and you have more to talk about. People like themselves. Okay. I give this an 8 out of 10 because it sounds really, really phony to me. That you're hunting for something that your boss likes to do, and then maybe you like to do it or maybe you don't, but use that as a conversation piece, especially if it's not something you currently do. I give that a high score of an 8 out of 10 on slimy. That's a little stocky for me. Okay, so here's the epitome that really drove my 8 out of 10 score. There was an employee who babysat the CEO's daughter. Now, I can't imagine how that conversation went. You imagine her talking to the CEO and saying, I really like kids, and in particular, I like your daughter, so I'd love to babysit her. So to me, this is just weird. And I talked to the employee when she told me about this, and she says, well, I just get to know her a little bit better outside the office. All right. It was kind of devious. So that's why it's an 8 out of 10. Now, having said that, I'm into dirt biking. And there was a case where somebody that I was working with was a motorcyclist as well and was just learning to do dirt biking. So I said to them, hey, listen, why don't we spend a day and we'll go out and ride. Now, he and I didn't know each other very, very well, and we sort of butted heads a little bit. So this sort of opened up the conversation for us. So did I actually do some sucking up? No, I just loved, I don't think so. I just wanted to help him out, and I love motorcycling. Next one. All right, so let's look at a summary of the first 8 that we talked about, and I have 7 more coming up in part 2. All right. So slime-free sucking up strategies by Wisebred and the slime score. The first one was gauge your target. Is your boss the type who likes compliments, or is the boss the type that detests compliments? You've got to understand that, and if they're the type that they like compliments, then maybe you suck up a bit, but I don't know. I find that kind of slimy. That was a 7. Retain your values. If sucking up's not in your vocabulary, don't do it. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it. It gets a 0 out of 10 in terms of slime. Be well-rounded. I gave this one an 8 because basically it was sucking up to all the important people who may play a role in you getting a promotion. That's the epitome of sucking up. Know where the line is. Complimenting versus throwing flattery like confetti. And this is the one that was about following your boss around like a little puppy dog, flattering him or her the whole time, like being a yes person. This is a 10 because if you're doing that kind of stuff, Number 5, ask for guidance in a flattering way. I gave this a low slime score of 3 because it depends on how you say it. If you just say something along the lines of, I like the way you did this, can you help me with a problem that I'm having, which is something you should do with your boss regardless, I gave it a score of 3. Observe and regurgitate. I only gave this one a 1, and basically this is where you're in meetings and you hear some great stuff that you're learning from your coworkers or from your boss, him or herself, repeat it back. So I don't find this as bad, or I really like the way you handled this, or I like the way that Cheryl did this. I don't see that as a really big deal, and I gave that a 1. 7. Dish compliments to their allies. And this is where you're bragging about your boss. So you're telling somebody else about how great your boss is. As long as you mean it, it's not a super high score. I gave it a 3. Number 8. Expand on a common passion. Like, I heard you like scotch. And then you go home and you start drinking scotch, so you know something about it. I give this one a pretty high slimy score because it sounds a little bit like stalking to me. So that was an 8. So those are the first 8 sucking up strategies offered by Wisebred with my comments on them. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please let me know you do. And if you feel like it, please subscribe. Thanks. I'm Bruce from Career Boss.